عمل جبار. نحن إذن سنرسم آلية لتعمل في هذا الاتجاه ضمن قلت السياسة الجزائرية التي تبحث عن حل مشكلة الهجرة من جذورها، وهي المساعدة الاقتصادية وهي التنمية. ولهذا تعمل الجزائر حتى على المستوى الدولي من أجل أن يتحول على المدى ولو على المدى البعيد الحق في التنمية إلى آلية مكرهة، إلى آلية قانونية اتفاقية عالمية لحق الشعوب في التنمية، كما دافعت باستمرار عن حق الشعوب في تقرير مصيرها.
شكرا جزيلا لك البروفيسور عبد المجيد زعلاني، رئيس المجلس الوطني لحقوق الإنسان. مستمعينا، نلتقي غدا في أمان الله.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has expressed his honor to address the Algerian people and the public opinion through the two houses of parliament. And at least 7 Palestinians were killed in airstrikes carried out or airstrikes today by the Israeli occupation army against a hospital in the town of Gaza. And South Korea has announced a 7-day national mourning over the plane crash in an airport in the south of Seoul. And those were the major developments. Now, the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has expressed his honor to address the Algerian people and the public opinion through the two houses of parliament. The President said that this meeting comes a few months after the start of the second mandate and aims at protecting the gains achieved and preserving and enhancing the living conditions of citizens and achieving socio-economic development in the country. The speech also came to highlight the importance of Parliament for being the representative of the Algerian people. The second mandate will be marked by the launch of the political dialogue as it was pledged, and it will live up to internal challenges. This traditional meeting enshrines the principle of dialogue, consultation and good governance among the various stakeholders. The President of the Republic had made a partial reshuffle of the heads of diplomatic and consular representations in accordance with Article 92 of the Constitution. The reshuffle concerned 28 ambassadors, 6 consuls general and 5 consuls. The new appointments came as part of improving the performance of the diplomatic missions in the face of the current challenges and ensuring better service for our national community abroad. The President of the National Human Rights Council, Abdelmadjid Zalani, has stated that the Algerian policy on the protection of human rights is based on the right of people to development and progress. During his interview with Radio Algeria International, the President of the National Human Rights Council stressed that one of the major issues of concern to Algeria currently is the migration issue. Thus, Algeria is working on finding radical solutions to this phenomenon by promoting local development in favor of the population.
سننصب خلية تفكير أو لجنة.
We will establish and set up a think tank or a special committee or a sort of mechanism which would work for months to come up with a program, a report and recommendations that would be submitted to public authorities within the framework of the Algerian policy. This is to seek a definitive solution for the issue of migration in light of human rights and respectful of human rights standards. I want to affirm that the Algerian policy is actually seeking to address the problem of migration from its roots through economic assistance and development. This is why Algeria is working even internationally, so the right to development turns into a binding and law-based mechanism as well as into an international agreement on people's right to development.
And regarding the atrocious genocidal crimes against the civilian population in Gaza, Abdelmadjid Zalani denounced the Israeli attacks, the latest being the arson of the Kamal Adwan hospital, saying that the recent attacks are beyond description as they exceed all descriptions of war crimes and crimes against humanity.
ما وقع من فظائع تجاوز التكييفات التقليدية.
The atrocities carried out exceeded traditional practices of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and all crimes whose perpetrators should be brought before the International Criminal Court. The reality of what is happening now exceeded the adjustments made by the international legislation body. We have never imagined that hospitals could be burned, people could be burned alive, especially children who are responsible for absolutely nothing. They are only 3 or 4 years old. That's a disaster. Humanity is now faced with its conscience against an unprecedented crisis that has never happened in human history. Therefore, humanity as a whole, in all parts of the world, bears the responsibility.
في كل مناطق الأرض المسؤولية.
Let's know that the president of the National Human Rights Council stated that Algeria has always advocated for the right of oppressed peoples to development and freedom. And reactions denouncing the criminalization by the Makhzen authorities of defenders of the Palestinian people and opponents to normalization with the occupying Zionist entity are increasing following the sentencing of 13 activists to 6 months in prison with a suspended sentence and a fine at a time when Morocco is currently chairing the United Nations Human Rights Council, raising questions about the ability of such a state to defend human rights at the global level while it flouts them on its own territory. Mohammed Khatil has more.
In this context, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, or BDS movement, Morocco strongly condemned in a statement all forms of repression and intimidation used by the Moroccan authorities to silence activists opposed to any form of normalization with the Zionist entity. The movement demanded that the Makhzen unconditionally drop all charges brought against these activists. Expressing its unconditional solidarity with the activists of the Moroccan Front for Support of Palestine and the fight against normalization and denouncing the unfair sentences issued against them, BDS Morocco stated that these trials reveal the hypocrisy of official speeches claiming to support the Palestinian cause, while forming military alliances with the occupier and repressing those who oppose it. For its part, the National Action Group for Palestine denounced in a statement the unfair sentences issued against the 13 opponents of normalization, describing these decisions as serious attacks on freedom of expression, the right to peaceful protest, and fundamental rights. The statement also highlighted the blatant legal paradox where the prosecution of individuals supporting the Zionist entity remains without follow-up, despite documented complaints filed by civil organizations without the necessary judicial procedures being implemented. The group expressed its total rejection of these unjust sentences, reaffirming its solidarity with the activists who reflect the voice of the free Moroccan people and its categorical rejection of normalization. It praised their role in denouncing the accomplices of the occupation and the heinous crimes perpetrated against innocent Palestinian people as part of a policy of genocide and ethnic cleansing condemned by the international community.
And to the Middle East now, at least 7 Palestinians were killed in airstrikes carried out today by the Israeli army against a hospital in the town of Gaza. Palestinian sources said several other people were wounded in the attack that hit the upper story of the Al-Aqsa or Al-Wafa hospital, bringing to 30 the number of people killed in the Israeli strikes for the past 24 hours. 3 days ago, the Al-Adwan hospital was assaulted by the Israeli forces before being set ablaze. The fate of the 350 people who were inside the Kamal Adwan hospital when the attack took place, including its director, medical staff members and patients, is still unknown. They have reportedly been taken by the Israeli soldiers for questioning. The attack on the Kamal Adwan hospital was condemned notably by the Arab League and the Gulf Cooperation Council, and yet another crime perpetrated by the occupying forces against the Palestinian population. And back to the continent, the Malian army announced that it had lost one of its soldiers and killed at least 21 terrorists when it foiled a complex attack in Sayed in central Mali on Saturday. The terrorists, who were outnumbered, failed in their attempt to attack in force during heavy fighting. The terrorists abandoned 21 bodies along with weapons, ammunition and various other military equipment during the clashes. 1 soldier was killed and 3 others wounded during the fighting. Local authorities are still looking for survivors and accomplices. In Sudan, at least 21 people have been killed and 17 others wounded in an attack perpetrated by the Rapid Support paramilitary forces against a shelter for displaced people in the town of Al Fasher in the center of the western state of North Darfur. A group of activists reported that a drone belonging to the RSF attacked a school. Since May 10, the town of Al Fasher, where the humanitarian operations of the 5 Darfur states are based, has been the scene of clashes between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support paramilitary forces. And polling stations have opened in Chad for legislative, provincial and local elections. Counting will begin immediately after the polls close, and the results will be announced in mid-January. Some 179 political parties or groupings are in the running for 188 seats in parliament. The legislative elections mark one of the final stages in the transition process that began with the death of President Idriss Déby Itno in April 2021. The last legislative elections were held in 2011. The National Assembly was due to be renewed in 2015, but the vote has been postponed several times, mainly due to financial difficulties and the coronavirus pandemic. To Asia now, South Korea has announced a 7-day national mourning over the plane crash in an airport in the south of Seoul. At least 177 died after a plane crashed while landing at an airport in the south of the country, or in South Seoul. 2 survivors were pulled from the debris and taken to hospital. The airplane from Bangkok attempted a belly landing at Muan International Airport after its landing gear reportedly failed to deploy. The National Fire Agency said rescuers raced to pull people from the plane, carrying 181 people at the airport in the town of Muan, about 290 kilometers south of the capital, Seoul. The death toll is expected to rise further as the rest of the people aboard the plane remain missing hours after the incident. Emergency workers said they pulled out 2 people, both crew members, to safety, and local health officials said they remain conscious. The fire agency deployed 32 fire trucks and several helicopters to contain the fire. The year 2025 has been declared the International Year of Glacier Conservation. This came in line with a resolution passed by the UN General Assembly in 2022 following the initiative from Tajikistan. The melting of glaciers has become one of the most pressing global environmental challenges. Mariam Barshi tells us more.
Experts predict that by 2050, glaciers will have disappeared from about 1/3 of the 50 UNESCO World Heritage Sites where they currently exist. These glaciers collectively lose around 58 billion tons of ice each year, which is equivalent to the combined annual water consumption of France and Spain. The impact of this ice loss is already being felt, with global sea levels rising by 5% over recent decades. Glaciers are crucial to the water supply, agriculture and hydropower for nearly 2 billion people worldwide. Their rapid melting poses a threat to these essential resources, affecting not only local communities, but also ecosystems that rely on steady water sources. In Tajikistan, a country heavily dependent on glacier-fed rivers, the situation is especially dire. More than 1,000 of the country's 14,000 glaciers have already melted, threatening up to 60% of Central Asia's water resources. The potential loss of these glaciers would have profound consequences for agriculture, hydropower, and the livelihoods of millions of people in the region. The International Year of Glaciers Conservation is a pivotal initiative aimed at raising awareness about the importance of glaciers and the urgent need for their protection. The UN resolution encourages countries to take action to conserve these vital natural resources and mitigate the impacts of their rapid disappearance.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and that's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a program devoted to the situation in Gaza amid the Israeli acts of genocide.
The year 2024 marks 1 year of Israel's war on Gaza that claimed tens of thousands of lives before expanding to other fronts in the region. Over 45,000 Palestinians have so far been killed, including women and children, whose number, the UN affirmed, exceeds the number of children killed in 4 years of conflict worldwide. The Israeli war on Gaza revealed the indescribable atrocities carried out against the Palestinian population and uncovered the occupying authorities' scheme to annihilate the Palestinian territory by targeting its healthcare facilities and vital infrastructure, depriving the population of basic needs. The relentless bombardment of Gaza caused the displacement of the population mainly after the Israeli occupying forces invaded Rafah in the southern part of the enclave, where 1.4 million Palestinians had sought refuge. Although it was considered a red line by the international community, Israel's invasion of Rafah forced the population to flee northward. However, the Israeli army intensified its attacks on the northern part of the enclave, notably Jabalia and Nusayrat, leaving the population in disarray as only few aid can enter the enclave. The UN and several human rights organizations have urged the UN Security Council to prevent Gaza's descent into famine. One of the elements, which, as evidenced in an investigation recently released by Amnesty International, could constitute a legal base for the charges of genocide leveled against the Israeli government. Asked about how significant Amnesty International's investigation is, our political analyst Hamoud Salhi had this to say.
There is no doubt that what Israel is doing in Gaza is part of a broader objective that aims at maintaining a permanent presence in the northern border of Israel. Since mid-October, for that matter, Israel has been engaged in a sustained ethnic cleansing campaign in northern Gaza, which is part of its implementation of the so-called General's Plan, which is designed specifically to target the remaining 200,000 Palestinians in this area, uprooting them and making life for them unlivable, in the process breaking all international norms, committing what amounts by all international accounts to genocide, engaging in collective punishment, and ultimately the goal of the general plans in this instance is to clear the way for the re-engagement of the illegal rebuilding of settlements in this part of Gaza. This is in line with the implementation of this plan. The Israelis' defense forces have been in recent months laying the foundation for a permanent Israeli annexation, which may take, according to Zionist reports in the media, at least until the end of the upcoming year, 2025. Also in line with what the ultra-right extremist agenda, the ultra-right extremists have been advocating for so many years, as we know, and more recently by the current finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, who is, as known, behind the genocide committed daily on the Gazans. And Smotrich is pushing for the extermination of all Palestinians and anything living Palestinians. His goal for the Zionist state is to repopulate Gaza, and that begins with northern Gaza. So from what we have seen on the ground, establishing facts on the ground, the statement by the Israelis and the media reports all point to the fact that the Israelis are engaged in a systematic effort to maintain a long-time presence in northern Gaza.
The Israeli government, which is facing charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity, leveled at the International Court of Justice, stubbornly pursued its settlement building in the West Bank. Earlier this year, a report issued by the Office of the European Union representative in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, affirmed that the Jewish settlement building has increased by 180% over the past 5 years. More recently, the Assistant Secretary General for the Middle East, Asia and the Pacific, Khaled Khiari, said he was deeply alarmed by the Israeli continued settlement expansion in the West Bank. Addressing a UN Security Council's meeting on the situation in the Middle East, he reiterated that the settlement activities were a blatant violation of international law and UN resolutions and were threatening the viability of a future Palestinian state.
The widespread devastation and deprivation resulting from Israel's military operations in North Gaza, especially around Jabalia, Beit Lahia and Beit Hanun, are making the conditions of life untenable for the Palestinian population there. I condemn Israel's use of explosive weapons with wide area effects in densely populated area that has caused massive casualties and damage to residential buildings, schools, hospitals, mosques, and UN premises. United Nations premises are inviolable in all times. I reiterate my unequivocal condemnation of the widespread killing and injury of civilians in Gaza, including women and children, and the deprivation of essentials to survive. I'm concerned over what may amount to violations of international humanitarian law in the conduct of hostilities, including non-compliance with the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precautions in attacks and against the effect of attacks. These are unacceptable and must stop immediately. I reiterate my call for the full investigation of all such incidents.
Since its launch, its military operations in Gaza, the Israeli government undertook to destroy the hopes and demolish the expectations of the Palestinians for independence. It undertook to deal a blow to the Palestinian cause, notably by liquidating some of the Palestinian Hamas movement leaders, including Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in Tehran. Let's recall that the rise in the settlement expansion was also accompanied by a rise in the settlers' violence in the occupied Palestinian territory. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, put at 1,423 the number of attacks perpetrated by Jewish settlers against the population in the West Bank.
Tamanrasset is a town located in the southern part of Algeria that is also the administrative capital of Tamanrasset province, the largest province in the country. Large it may be, but vast areas of Tamanrasset province are virtually uninhabited. One might say that Tamanrasset is the poster child for desert oasis everywhere, outside the duty but well-ordered town of Tamanrasset with its signature red houses, desert wastes of the magnificent Sahara stretch from miles in any direction. It is for this reason that Tamanrasset has long been a vital rest stop for ancient caravans and desert traders. The town's importance to Algeria was demonstrated by the fact that the paved Trans-Sahara Highway goes through Tamanrasset, and travelers on the north-south route often stop at the town. Contrary to most people's impressions, the Sahara is much more than a great sea of sand dunes. One of the Earth's largest dune fields, the Grand Erg, stretches for many miles to the east and west of Tamanrasset. Immense waves of shifting sand, with crests up to 15 feet high, march across the desert under a baking sun. Tourists who visit the area are forewarned to bring sunscreen, protective clothing, and of course, a supply of drinking water. When they set out to explore the dunes, temperatures in and around Tamanrasset are among the highest in the world, often exceeding 100 degrees in the shade. Thirsty travelers who reach Tamanrasset after a long, sun-baked journey certainly appreciate the fresh fruit, breads, and well water available in the town. The majority ethnic group in and around Tamanrasset are the Tuareg, a mainly nomadic people who have learned to survive, even thrive, in the harsh conditions of the Sahara. Masters of the camel and caravan, the Tuareg still seek to maintain their ancient culture and nomadic ways in the face of the modern influences of the 21st century. As such, the population of Tamanrasset fluctuates according to the season. When rains moisten the thin soils of the rugged Ahagar and Tadmate plateaus, the Tuareg tribesmen and their families graze goats and camels on the fields of grass, then return to Tamanrasset with milk, cheese, and meat to trade in the marketplace or kasbah. Visitors to Tamanrasset will find the people to be friendly and accommodating. Through the pride they take in the culture and customs is obvious. Generally, the Tuareg of Algeria are of Berber descent, but being a Tuareg is not limited to a certain race or family tree. As long as the lifestyle, traditions, and language are accepted, people are seen as Tuareg. Living mostly in the West African regions with nomadic tribe of the Sahara, once traveled the desert in great numbers, but after invasions and wars, they have been reduced to small groups scattered across the sandy hills of the unforgiving deserts. At the start of the 17th century, Arabs started moving into the coastal regions of Algeria, pushing the Tuareg into the Sahara Desert. There were approximately 3 million Tuareg at this time, who took on the role as trans-Saharan camel traders, traveling across the desert plains from one destination to the next. Setting up tents along the way, the caravans of camels and tribe members were a common sight on the ever-changing landscape of the Sahara Desert. The Tuareg are still known for camel trading, but have also evolved into camel breeders and blacksmiths. Their crafted swords, jewelry, leatherwork, and metal craft have become sought-after items. There have even been exhibitions of their works, such as the art of being Tuareg, at the Stanford Canto Arts Center, displaying swords, amulets, drums, dresses, saddles, and tents. Traditional Tuareg music can still be heard at festivals and events, but bands like Tinariwin have added a few modern instruments and have brought their genre of music to the modern world. Even though music is known about the Tuareg today, they still remain a mysterious part of Algeria's culture and the nomads of the Great Sahara Desert.
الجزائر الدولية تنقل إليكم صوت الجزائر، تضعكم في الصورة وترسم لكم الطريق عبر محللين مختصين ومراسليها في العالم.